now, Rachel. So best of luck. Okay, here we go. Start. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Professional Beauty webinar. Today, I'm joined by the lovely Racheal Hall from Salon Eyebrow Envy, and today she's going to be talking all things brow treatments. Now, we know that brows are big business in the beauty industry. People love it, and there's quite a few popular treatments at the moment that clients are absolutely loving. So Rachel's going to be talking through 3 of the big ones. She's going to be talking about the newbie brow lamination, microblading, and also semi-perm. If you do have any questions for Racheal while she's doing her presentation, if you just pop it in the chat box on the webinar platform, or if you comment on the comment box on Facebook, then I will make sure to get as many questions to Racheal at the end of the session as possible. But thank you so much for joining us today, Racheal, and I will let you take it away. If you want to just try and get the presentation up, and then I will turn my camera and mic on and come back at the end.
Very well, it is coming on.
Amazing. Now. Cool. I'll see you at the end, Racheal, for the Q&A.
You will. Thank you. Thanks, Amanda. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, like Amanda said, I'm Racheal. Thank you so much for having me and letting me come on and speak to you all about brow treatments. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about myself. So I've been doing brows for probably around about 15 years. I originally started in permanent makeup and then gradually went on to discover my love of eyebrows. I was a trainer with the very famous HD Brows for many years. And then 3 years ago, I decided to branch out on my own and kind of created my own training, my own treatments. And here we are today. So my focus obviously is on the popular treatments that I love to do. I do around about 50 sets of brows a week myself, normally, not at the moment. So it's been a bit of a brow holiday for me for the last 5 weeks, as it is for everybody else. So yes, I hope you enjoy, and I look forward to any questions at the end. Okay. So the top discussion points that we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking about brow lamination, which is the question on everybody's lips. We'll talk about micropigmentation or tattooing. There are various different names for it. And we're also going to talk about semi-permanent colouring, which is a big umbrella. A lot comes under that. Okay. So before we do get started, some very interesting brow information, if anybody doesn't know these things. So between 3,500 BC and 2,500 BC, ancient Egyptian men and women wore makeup for its supernatural powers. So I like to think that that supernatural brow power still continues into 2020. In ancient Greece, between 800 BC and 146 BC, while women who were married, they don't need to do very much, they've already snared their man, but any unwed women would use black incense to make their eyebrows super intense, and a unibrow was recognised as a very beautiful trait. And I wonder how many of our clients are sporting a beautiful unibrow at the moment. The average person has around about 250 brows, so 250 hairs per eyebrow. So obviously with over plucking and everything that people do to their brows, that's not always the case for everybody, but on average that's what people should have. Brows grow faster in warmer weather, which is why we should all go on holiday all the time, apart from at the moment. Brow follicles attempt to recover the hair after it's been removed. So what you might find is that when a hair has been plucked, sometimes it can cause a little bit of a bump. That's actually the hair follicle that's rushing to that particular site to try and repair it. Where's the hair gone? Where's my hair gone? Normally that disappears after a couple of hours. If it doesn't, then it can be something, you know, different. It's not always that case, but that's what hair follicles do tend to try and do. And a fear of eyebrows, it is actually a phobia, and it's called omotrichophobia. So tricha is obviously hair removal or hair, but omotrichophobia, that's your phobia of eyebrows. Okay. So There are lots of different brow treatments that are available. Okay, we're not going to cover them all today, but you've got your brow shaping, which is your waxing, your threading, your tweezing, sugaring. You know, there's lots of different things coming out. You know, on a weekly basis sometimes. So those are your brow shaping. That's your brow shaping umbrella. Then you've got your brow colouring. So that can be tint, henna, that can be conventional makeup. So anything that adds colour to your hairs and to your skin, that's brow colouring. Obviously, we've got brow lamination. So in effect, that's perming. So not perming to make them curly, but perming to make them straight. And then you've got your brow micropigmentation. So under that umbrella is microblading and tattooing. And then you've got your brow transplant, which is obviously a medical procedure. Definitely not speaking about that today because I'm not medical. Okay. Right, so first of all, we're going to talk about brow lamination. So like I said before, brow lamination is a form of perming, and it uses a series of chemical products that are applied to the hairs. So in a nutshell, the treatment could involve the hair would be brushed into a specific position, then a series of products are applied to break down the bonds of the hairs, and then another product would be applied to set those hairs into the desired shape. And then they have to be moisturized at the end. Tint can be used if desired. And obviously your usual hair removable methods are absolutely fine. Different brands and different companies will use them in slightly different ways, but that principle's pretty much the same. So if we look at the pros and cons, so with brow lamination, it is very easy to do. So as a therapist, it is a very easy to do treatment. I think it probably looks a little bit easier sometimes than it is. There is a little bit of science behind it, which is important to know. You can create lots of different styles. So some clients will want them brushed up. Some clients want them really extreme. And while it might not be your personal preference, it's good to be able to show your client that you can provide that for them and show them how they could make it a little bit softer if necessary. It's great for covering up little scars. You can use those hairs to cover up the little scars in there. And it's easy maintenance, so the client doesn't really have to do anything apart from a bit of moisturizer and brushing them daily. That's kind of it. So it's a really good solution for your client. You see instant results, so we all like instant result treatments. Well, I do personally. I'm a little bit impatient, so for me to be able to see an instant result with a client is great. Although while I say that, some clients, if they've got particularly difficult to manage hair, so it's very wiry, very strong, you might need to do it over 2 treatments, because the first time you don't want to risk over processing the hair. So you might need to err on the side of caution the first treatment, but then you can really go for it the second treatment, no less than 6 weeks after the first one, again to avoid over processing. It can help brows appear thicker. And if anybody's seen any of the pictures that have been on Instagram and on social media, I mean, there are some absolutely amazing transformations. My personal clients have been blown away with the results because it can just help to make them look a lot thicker, because we are moving those hairs from their normal position into a position that we want them to be. And it's very versatile. So because what happens is the hairs become a little bit more pliable. So your clients might want to brush them into a very sleek position on a Monday. And then on a Tuesday, they might think, oh, I just fancy a little bit more of a brushed up look today. They can actually do that. So the hairs will then tend to move easier into different positions as they want them to. The cons, it isn't suitable for everybody. If somebody doesn't have hair, it's not going to be a great treatment for them. You have to kind of judge it on each client, but if they've got 3 hairs and a bit of a wisp, it isn't going to do anything for them, unfortunately. It's important to know that it can cause dryness, it can cause hair loss, and it can cause skin irritation. So very important to know your client's skin and their hair and their medical background. Okay, there is a risk of over processing. So definitely caution should be taken. It's the same with any of our treatments. There is always a risk, but I think it's very important to know that these things can happen. Overall, though, it's a very good, very popular brow treatment. Okay, we're now going to talk about microblading versus micropigmentation. Okay, so I trained in brow tattooing and machine method brow tattooing many years ago. And I obviously used the pen method. I also learned how to do the other areas of the face as well. When I learned, eyebrows weren't actually as popular as they are now. But it is a form of implanting coloured pigment into the skin. Okay. Now it's often called semi-permanent makeup. It's often called permanent makeup. It is the same thing. So essentially, it's semi-permanent in the fact that it will fade. So it will fade over time as it's exposed to UV rays, exfoliation, etc. But it is permanent in the fact that the pigment usually just stays in the skin. So even though it fades, it stays in there. Okay. So micropigmentation uses a machine. Okay, so you would use a machine that's plugged into the mains, and you would have a pen, and you would change your blades that go into the pen, and then you would do your treatment. With microblading, it uses a manual blade. Okay, so it's a manual handheld blade, no machine, no electricity. Okay, so both methods do achieve similar outcomes, especially when we're talking about brows, and realistic hair strokes can be created. So go on to the next slide. So we can see the differences really. So with microblading, no machine is required. Okay, there is less initial outlay. It can create very fine, realistic hair strokes. So if you have clients that have gaps in their brows and they're very conscious of those, they're fed up of having to pencil them in every day, then they can just, you can then place specific hair strokes within those areas. So whilst you can create a full brow for people that have got no hair, you can use it to fill in gaps. So it's great. It's very good for things like that. But it may only last a few months. So it depends on what you and your client decide to do. But with microblading, you only really want it to last a few months. Okay. It is a bit harder to control the depth though with microblading. Okay, so you don't have the same control as you might do with a machine. So training is absolutely crucial. Good, reputable training. Okay. With micropigmentation, so it's a bigger initial outlay because you've got equipment to maintain. And you've got the original equipment to purchase. It can also create very fine, realistic hair strokes, but you can use other techniques as well, such as dotting, shading. I know that can be achieved through microblading as well, some of those techniques, and that's quite an advanced version of it. I don't know about you, but I love looking at all these pictures on Instagram. There are some absolutely amazing artists out there. Okay, so it is some brilliant transformations. But the thing with micropigmentation is that it can also then be used in other areas. So your training provider usually will offer, the training to treat other areas of the face, the nipples. So areola tattooing is extremely confidence building. It's amazing, especially if people have had surgery. And then obviously you can do lips and eyeliner as well. So there's a couple of different things to take into consideration. So the pros and the cons of semi-permanent makeup, permanent makeup, whichever words you want to use. So very fine, realistic hair strokes can be created. It's great for clients who've got no hair or lots of gaps within their hair and just need that kind of, shape solidifying, okay? When they don't have to do anything with it, so they can just get up in the morning, jump in the shower, and the brows are there. So absolutely perfect for clients like that, okay? It also saves them a lot of time and maintenance. They don't need to do anything. So literally they just get up and go. And ideal for clients with hair loss challenges. So if clients have got challenges like trichomania, which is where somebody will habitually pull their eyebrow hair out, or the lashes, or the hair on the head, and that can obviously be sometimes be a nervous disorder. So it's ideal for those kind of clients. People with alopecia, maybe pre-chemo clients, providing you've got their doctor and oncologist permission. So great for clients that, you know, have got hair loss issues, for that confidence as well. The cons, well, it's not so much cons, but things that you need to be aware of is that insurance and licensing requirements do increase, and every single borough or council is different. So you would need to speak to your council directly to see what their regulations are. And it's a very contentious subject, because I know that some councils are much stricter than others, but you would really need to speak to those directly. Obviously, improper training can be disastrous, as it can with most things, but when you're implanting something into somebody's skin, absolutely crucial. The pigment can be implanted too deep, which would cause scarring, and then you can have what's called migration, which isn't nice. So that's when the pigment will kind of bleed a little bit through the skin, so kind of creates a lot of blur. So absolute crucial, training. And obviously contraindications apply. So if some clients are on things like warfarin and other maybe blood thinning medications, then you know you need to be extra cautious. Make sure you get doctor's notes, etc., and medical consent. Okay, so finally, we're going to talk about the different options for brow colouring. Okay, so brow colouring is a semi-permanent way to create colour within your brows. So you can use professional products such as tint or henna, or you can obviously just use conventional makeup. So I'll use myself as an example. I recently did an Instagram video on how to colour your brows in with makeup if you have skin like mine. So I have very large pores on my brow area, and I have no choice but to use normal makeup, because tattoo ink doesn't stay in my skin. My skin does not like it, and I have no hair. Okay, so I have no choice but to use makeup, but I don't look at it as a bad thing. You know, sometimes I like to have blue brows or purple brows, you know, just to be funky. I know that I am au naturel anyway, but yeah, you know, it's good to be able to, you know, sell the positives of that. Okay, there's always a solution for people. Okay, so if it's not tint, it's not henna, then normally makeup, that can be a good option for people. Okay, and you don't just have to colour the hairs, you can colour the skin as well. So in cases like mine, I have to colour in the skin because I've got no hair, and you will have clients that are exactly the same. So it's good to be able to show them different varieties, different things that they can do. You know, it doesn't have to be all that bad. Okay, so if we look at the pros and cons of each. Okay, so like I said, with conventional makeup, it's very quick, it's very easy. You know, you can experiment with it. It's not permanent. If it doesn't go on right, you can wash it off and try again. And the lockdown situation could be a good opportunity for people to give it a try. You know, they're not going anywhere. Let's, you know, have a play around and sharpen up those skills. It's obviously easily accessible, so you can get it from most shops. If you don't want to buy it on a shop, you can buy it online. There are lots of amazing brow makeup brands that are available. So, you know, people can get hold of it and have a play around. With tint and henna, so obviously these are more semi-permanent options, okay? So both products, or both techniques will contain PPD. Okay, so for anyone that doesn't understand what PPD is, it stands for paraphenylenediamine. Okay, that is the active chemical that is in these products that is more than likely to cause a reaction if someone is allergic. Okay, not always, but in a lot of cases. So if somebody is allergic to PPD, then they will be allergic to these two products. Okay. Now, different brands will declare different things, and I know that there are some brands out there that may not contain PPD, but obviously make sure that you do your research very carefully and be aware that the vast majority do. Okay, but tint and henna both have their own pros and cons, if you like. So with tint, it's very quick and easy to use. Okay, it doesn't always last very long on a client because it normally just tints the hair. You can get some skin stainage as well, but it doesn't tend to last very long, more than maybe a day or so, because obviously it's exfoliated off. And it's not designed to go on the skin either. But you can create some really good dark shades, and it is a more natural finish because, you know, medium term, it does tend to only cover the hairs. Okay. It is better if the client has got hair. Okay, so again, like mine, I'll keep using myself as an example. Tint isn't always the best option for me because I don't have very much hair. Okay, and it can be a bit messy. Yeah, I tend to get it all over my fingers, which I'm sure that many of us do. With henna, so henna is very different in how you mix it and how you apply it to tint. Okay, so with tint, you tend to mix it up with some developer, pop it on the brow hairs, and after, you know, however many minutes, then you would wipe it off, okay, and then that would give your stain on the hairs. With henna, it normally comes in powder format. Some brands are different, but normally it comes in a powder format which you mix either with water or a brand solution to create your paste. You would then create a shape. You would then put your henna on, leave it for an allotted time, and then obviously remove it. So it is a very different application in that sense. Okay, it's usually natural and vegan, which is excellent, and that's what a lot of people want. And the fact that it lasts a lot longer, so it can last up to 3 times longer than tint, but that's because it also creates a shade on the skin, so it almost gives like a makeup look. And that's what it should do, and it will, different skin types will retain it differently. So while some people may get a week out of it on the skin, some people might get 3-4 weeks out of it on the skin. It does all depend. If someone's got very oily skin, then henna's not going to last on the skin as long as it would if it wasn't oily. Okay, so that's something to bear in mind. Tint creates more of a natural finish because, like I said, it doesn't stain the skin, whereas with henna, you can get a really strong, dramatic look. Okay, so shaping, brow shaping is absolutely crucial when using henna, okay, because if you get it wrong, it's very difficult to get off, especially straight away. It needs that time to come off. Okay. Again, no good if the client's got PPD allergy. And it can be difficult to know which brands to pick. There are a lot of brands out there and they're all fantastic. They've all got their different strengths. And if you were thinking about going with, you know, learning how to do henna, then I would definitely recommend looking at their before and after pictures, looking at reviews, you know, listen to what their students have had to say. You'll know if it's for you or not. Okay. Again, like I said, it can be messy. I do get henna everywhere. Now, it can go too dark as well. So what you don't want to do is leave it on for so long or use the wrong colours so that it looks so dark that you can't get rid of it. Okay. Right, so we are onto a bit of consultation. I do want to talk and I'm conscious of time, but I do want to talk, you know, briefly about the importance of consultation. So deciding what treatment is best for your client. I get a lot of my clients or people that aren't my clients that, you know, want some advice. They will ask me, I need my brows doing, you know, what should I have? So what I say, so key to everything is consultation. You need to learn about your client. You need to know their lifestyle, their budget, their long-term goals, any contraindications. You know, it's absolutely pointless recommending henna or tint if they're allergic. You know, if someone has got a thyroid issue or alopecia, then lamination is going to be no good. Okay, if they want soft and natural, maybe henna's not the best. So you have to make sure that you use your consultation skills really strongly. If somebody's speaking to me, via social media, then I will ask them to send me a picture so that I can have a good look at their brows, and then I'll probably give them a call. And then I can have a chat with them and find out what their situation is so that I can then advise them from there. Okay. And also what I think is key is what you are trained, obviously what you're trained in, but what you're confident in doing. Okay. So make sure that you feel confident when you are promoting your treatments to your clients. It's very important that the client feels safe in your hands. So they know that if you are speaking about all your treatments, all the different options that are available, they know that if they come to you, then they are going to get the best solution for them. Okay. And I think if they see that you are really passionate about what you do, then you're going to kind of feed them with that. Okay. So finally, I just want to say thank you very much for listening. I know we're all in very difficult times. I have been asked actually by a couple of people if I should, or if I've considered sending out home tinting kits to my clients and things like that. I would strongly recommend not sending out those kind of kits. You have no idea of contraindications at this point. You would be liable. There's a whole host of problems. I think just tell your clients to not touch them, have massive bushy brows for when they come back to you. You're going to get some amazing before and after pictures, and everyone's just going to feel fantastic and refreshed when you come back. So if anybody is interested in following any of my social media, so obviously Instagram, Facebook, the details are there on the screen, along with the website address. If anybody does want to speak to me about any of my training courses, then please feel free to message me via the website. And Amanda, I think we're pretty much coming to a close, so I don't know if we want to take any questions.
Hey, hi Racheal. Racheal, I'm just going to shut your presentation now so that we can answer some of the audience questions. I think I speak for everybody when I say that was so insightful, so much good information there. And I know a few people were asking about if they can access the slides again. So just to let everybody know, this webinar will be live on Professional Beauty's YouTube as of tomorrow morning. So if you do want to go back, you want to take some notes down, take that information in, you absolutely can. So I might start with a few of the Facebook questions, if that's all right, Racheal, just because there's been a couple.
Okay.
Hayley Sargent has asked, how much do you charge for a brow lamination and a tint?
Okay, so I had the option whether to use brow lamination as a standalone treatment or kind of include it as a whole treatment, which includes tint, and all the hair removal and everything that goes with it. I only provide everything as a whole because I want to kind of get the best result. For that, I charge £40. So you have to kind of go with your area. So I'm actually quite expensive, but you have to decide for yourself what you think. So I would always recommend nothing less than £25 and maybe up to 50. But again, it depends on your area. So I charge 40. It's a 45-minute treatment. And we're going to have a good chat and a cup of tea kind of at the same time. And they get amazing brows at the end of it.
Casey on Facebook has also asked about with henna colouring. Are there any risks with it, basically?
Of course, definitely there are. There are risks with everything. The biggest risk that you've got with henna is allergy. Patch testing is absolutely crucial. So always a minimum of 48 hours before doing the treatment would you apply the patch test. Maybe even longer. 72 hours is a really nice cushion because some people can get delayed reactions. If anyone has a known allergy to PPD, then they would be allergic. And if anyone's previously had reactions to things like black henna, you know, the kind of henna tattoos that you get on the beach on holiday, if anyone's ever had a reaction to one of those, you will have a reaction to henna tint as well. So very, very important to make sure that you get a patch test.
And Ellie on Facebook has also asked what your favourite brow treatment is to do. Which one is your favourite?
Oh, do you know, I think it changes daily. So sometimes I could have like 10 henna clients in and I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm loving henna, love it, love it, love it. And then the next day I might have like 10 laminations in and I'm in love with that. So it does, I love what I do. I do 3 main treatments myself. I do henna, I do lamination, and I do shaping. And obviously in lamination, shaping is there as well. So I just love doing brows. Brows is my favourite treatment to do, just brows.
Yeah. On the webinar platform, we've had so many questions about the products that you're using and who you recommend, and particularly about what pigment brands you use for micropigmentation, what tinting brands you use as well. So are there any particular products that you would recommend?
There are a lot of the different manufacturers that are out there. With tinting, for example, I like anything with a cream developer. I'm not personally a fan of the water droplet developers. So I personally use Hairwell, which I love, and I've used them for many years, so I know how it works. With henna, I use BH Brow Henna, or Brow Zenna, as it's called, but I know that there are so many other brands that are out there. So obviously, you know, sometimes you have to play with the different brands to see which you like the best. But that's what I personally use. I trained with Nouveau Contour for permanent makeup. And obviously Karen Betts has got her own brand, KB Pro Brows. So she has her own brand of pigment out, which are extremely highly thought of. But there are so many that are out there, but those are what I would recommend.
And we've had absolutely loads of questions.
Sorry, can I just say with
sorry,
the brow
Racheal, say that again? Yeah.
Beautiful brows and lashes, use the brow bomb. Now, none of these have actually asked me to mention them, so you know, they don't even know that I'm mentioning them. But that's what I use for the lamination. So those products are also amazing. So it's called the brow and lash bomb. You can use if you're trained in lash lift. You can use them for both.
Yeah, we've had absolutely loads of questions on the webinar platform for you, Racheal, so I'm going to try my best to get through as many as possible. Marie has asked, can she laminate brows and then use henna afterwards?
Okay, so I know that some companies will say yes and some companies will say no. So my company says no, and it can be for a variety of different reasons. So with the brands and the technique that I use, I believe, and my opinion is, that you need to give it 24 hours after lamination before hennaing. So if you were to do it at the same time, so if you were to henna first and then laminate, then with the lamination you would remove all the henna that you just put on. So that would kind of like negate the henna treatment. And secondly, because the lamination, because it can be quite drying, and because we're removing the hairs and getting them into a nice position, with henna it depends on the technique that you use, but there can be a lot of exfoliating and brushing. So I think if you've already put a chemical treatment onto the brow hairs, they need a rest, they need, you know, a bit of a break, they need to kind of repair themselves a little bit. So my advice, laminate first, minimum 24 hours later. If you have to have henna, have henna. But what I will say is, it's not always necessary to henna and laminate at the same time, and in my opinion, because when you laminate the brows, you open the pores of the hair shafts, so the tint will kind of grab much quicker, and it can also be a lot darker, and it can last a bit longer because you've already damaged the hairs. So you don't always need to have henna at the same time as lamination. I know there will be people that will not agree with me, and that is fine. But that's my view on it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've also got a question from Natasha, who is asking your advice on how to tint grey brows. So how do you get the colour on them?
With grey brows, it can be quite difficult. Sometimes I know that they don't always want to tint. So henna is amazing for colouring grey and white hairs, incidentally. With tinting, if they will not tint, because in some cases they just won't, you could try pre-lightening them if you are qualified and trained and insured to do so. And if you're not, maybe get onto a course to do that. So by actually almost damaging the hair, so it's almost like you're putting bleach on them, but not actual bleach. It's a very specific brow lightening treatment. So you could use that first, which would then allow the hair to be opened up and will accept the tint better. But sometimes it is difficult with, grey hair and tint. It's not always the best option for grey hairs.
I have another tinting troubleshooting query for you. This one's from Maria Webb, and she says, I have clients with blonde brows and I use light brown on the brows, but the colour turns reddish. She says she's used different brands and she still gets this kind of reddish colour. Why?
Okay, so you have warm and you have cool colours. So it's a bit like hair as well, So obviously, Amanda, your hair is quite warm colour. My hair is obviously blue and cold colour, so a cool colour. So if we were to mix them together, then you would achieve a different colour. Yeah. So browns are obviously very warm. I'm assuming that because she's using light brown, that she doesn't want them to be tinted very dark. So if she's finding that the colour's putting really, really reddy, then add a bit of grey. So you could add a bit of grey or a bit of graphite into that colour, which would tone down the warmth and give a slightly cooler colour. So hopefully that would take away. But what I would say is maybe try grey on its own. See what happens.
And we also have a question from Stephanie Carlton, and she said that they teach tinting in the college where she works. She's wondering what your thoughts are on colleges teaching other brow treatments like lamination and microblading in colleges. What's your thoughts on that?
Thoughts? Yeah, I actually think it's really good. I think any form of education, especially with the industry as it is at the moment, you have to be well trained, you have to be well qualified, and you have to be able to keep up. And I think, with colleges, not just FE colleges, but, mainstream colleges, I think you have to know how to do these things properly to be able to then, kind of go out into the world of beauty. So, yeah, I think that it's an excellent idea. I actually work with some colleges myself. And we'll go in and do maybe like some open days. I do like private training for their students because they don't offer it. Because I think it's really key for them to learn, or for you guys to learn in colleges, what's actually out there and what people are wanting. So you have to know how to do it. There are some also fantastic private training companies as well. But if you've got the opportunity to do it while you're doing your college course, then definitely do it.
And we have another comment from Amy on the webinar platform. And she said, I did a microblading course and I loved it. I've only done my mum's brows so far and they looked amazing. But I've lost my confidence because of the nature of it. And now that we're in lockdown, I think I've maybe wasted my money on the course. So I guess Amy's looking for a little bit of advice on how to pick this back up when businesses are able to reopen and get going again.
Yeah, I think it's so difficult. I know what a lot of my microblading colleagues and friends are doing. Get practice mats. You can get them on Amazon or eBay. Get some practice mats. Get some, pigment that you can just buy to use to practice, and get practice in. So, get 10 practice mats. Sit there and just keep practicing. Maybe get in touch with, some of your trainers. I know some of my students will message me and say, oh, Racheal, can you just help me with this? And I'll be like, yeah, come on, let's do it. We'll maybe have a webinar chat like this, and just talk through it again, have a look back through your manuals, have a look online and videos that people are doing. Don't lose the enthusiasm. Microblading is quite a scary thing for some people. I know it terrified me. So, you need to keep at it. But now is the perfect time to get practicing, get on magazines, draw people's brows in on magazines, or, just draw them if you can. Change Gaga's brows, just keep drawing, keep practicing, keep microblading on your practice mats, speak to your trainers. There's loads of Facebook help groups as well. So I would say get in with the community. You get all sorts of good advice from other people in the same situation. Don't lose faith though. You've made a big investment. You've been very pleased with the first one you've done. Keep going at it. And there's lots of things that you can do there.
Yeah, and actually, just on that point about practicing, Karen Betts has been practicing microblading on fruit, which has been really funny. If you go to her Instagram page, just drawing brows on oranges and things. So, yeah, I guess it's thinking outside the box at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely.
She's so funny. We've got another question from Angela Smith on the webinar platform, and she's just said, how do you manage arranging patch tests when you have lots of clients per week?
So patch tests, when in September I downsized my salon. So prior to that, I had a much bigger salon, and so I was in a better position to send patch tests out if my insurance allows it, or clients would just have to come in. So now what I do is the clients have to come in and do a patch test. And I've had this question many times, certainly through training. And my students will, sometimes they're worried, oh, well, I'm just going to lose the client. They won't come in and do the patch test. Well, actually, they do, because A, they appreciate that you think about their welfare. And I say to a client, I don't want you to have a reaction, because then, I won't be able to sleep at night. The client's then got a blown up face. It's not worth it. So your client needs to come to you and get a patch test, and then they can have the treatment done. So, and sometimes you don't always need to do a patch test every single time either. I know that some brands do ask for that, some brands don't, and it changes regularly. So if you only have to do it every 3 months, then just do it every 3 months, but never, ever do the treatment without a patch test.
Yeah, really sound advice there. Also, we've got a question from Tina, and she's asking about what makeup you use on your brows, because she said they look great, and she's the same, that she has very large oily pores.
I have a few brands that I absolutely love. I love the old HD brow palette, which I still use to this day and love that. I love the Eyebrow Queen range, and I actually love the Sleek palettes as well, because they have all the funky colours. So I think normal brow makeup is the usual colours that everyone would use, which is fine. But obviously, I like to be a bit funky. Sometimes I like to have purple eyebrows and have blue eyebrows. So I will use the Sleek palette for that. Anything that doesn't have too much of a shimmer, because I find that shimmer can just make them look a bit odd, because they can still be a really cool colour and still look really good. So those are my three: Eyebrow Queens range, HD Brows range, and the Sleek palette.
And we've just had some questions come in about patch testing, just obviously because we've been talking about it. Just had a couple of questions asking about where you think the best place is to patch test, because some people have been saying they've been taught at college to patch test behind the ear, but then they've seen other articles saying that actually it's better to do it in the crook of the arm. What's your kind of advice on this?
Well, I think there are pros and cons for both, really. A patch test is a patch test, no matter where it goes, really, because if someone's allergic to the product, then they're going to be allergic to the product pretty much wherever. I think if it's behind the ear, some people say because it's closer to the face, it's similar skin to the face, then maybe that would have an effect. If you were going to do it behind the ear, I would use a very small amount. And maybe you could do both. Maybe you could have a slightly bigger patch on the inside of the arm. And then maybe if you wanted to do a test behind the ear, you could just do a tiny little bit just to be safe. I prefer to do it on the inside of the arm. That's my preference. My thoughts behind that is, if somebody was to have a reaction to the patch test, I'd rather they have the reaction on the inside of their arm than behind their ear. I mean, that's my personal preference. I will ask clients though often, you know, which one they would prefer, because if they're going out for, you know, if they're going out for a night out and they're wearing a short sleeve dress and they don't want a black dot, I try and make it look like a little freckle or a little mole or a couple of moles. So yeah, that's what I try and do to combat that. So just make a bit of a joke of it, but crucial.
Yeah. So I think we've got time just for one more question. So I'm going to do one that's come on Facebook. This has come in from Jamie Michelle Godfrey. And they've asked, in the industry at the moment, there are certain treatments you can do a day course in. And you find people think college students in beauty shouldn't be doing these treatments that early. Do you think this will change anytime soon?
So, just so that I'm clear about the question,
I think it's about day courses.
Okay, so it's a bit
Yeah.
of a controversial question, really, and I think that different people will have different views on it. My view is, if somebody is trained, has gone to college and trained to be a beauty therapist, and they've gone on a day course, I think that's absolutely fine. What I do think is that if somebody hasn't been to college, I actually did not go to college to train to be a beauty therapist. All my training has been done privately. Because I missed the boat on that one. So all my training has always been done privately. It costs much more money. So I think that if people were going to go on and learn things like henna brows or brow lamination, I mean, with my courses, you have to do my 2-day brow stylist course first to be able to then do brow lamination and brow henna, because you have to know the principles. You need to know A&P. You need to understand, you know, how the brow works. You need to understand shapes. So I think that, you know, you have to have some underpinning knowledge and some underpinning education before going on and doing the 1-day courses. I would say never do anything that's less than 2 days if you are a complete beginner.
Well, thank you so much, Racheal. You've answered absolutely tons of questions. And thank you for everybody who's tuned in. So, like I said, Racheal's presentation will be available on YouTube from tomorrow morning. So you can catch all the slides and everything else there. But I think that's all that we've got time for today. We do have 2 more kind of online education stuff happening this week, which I'll quickly just tell you about. Tomorrow we have a beauty panel with Armin Beasley, Lisa Franklin and Georgia Barnes, who are going to be talking about the differences between organic, natural and clean beauty. And then on Friday, we're going to be having an Instagram live interview with celebrity spray tanner, Jules von Hep, who will be talking about how you can stay mentally healthy during COVID-19 and sharing his top spray tanning tips. But yeah, pretty much. Thank you so much, Racheal. Really appreciate it. And I hope to see you soon when lockdown's done. And thank you, everybody else. Stay safe and see you soon. Thank you so much, everyone. See you later.